Hello everyone. If, like me, you own one or a few orchids and you have been lucky enough to see them from flower to flower and you're interested in keeping them alive and happy, then this video is for you. I am going to, however, talk about what not to do with them. And from my experience, I've seen and made many mistakes when it comes to them, and it is this that I want to share with you to try and avoid so that you don't go through that disappointment and, dare I say, trauma of having being gifted an orchid or buying one because it looked ever so good in the shop or the nursery at the time, only to bring it home, see its flowers wither away, and then never see them flower again. And then, even worst case scenario, end up chucking them on the compost heap or in the bin. So let's not go there. Let's talk positive, but with some helpful tips, hopefully, to try and avoid that situation. I guess because they are so abundant and because I don't think I know of anyone that doesn't have at least one orchid, I felt a bit unsure about this video and whether it is really something to talk about because I don't know if people have the same problems or if people even care very much for them. Um, yes, they're absolutely lovely and they can be magnificent species, but I think they're so abundant, people often don't really mind just buying one or being gifted one, throwing it away if it doesn't work and just trying again. But for the sake of sustainability and for the sake of some self-worth and some self-confidence, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about keeping them alive and, more importantly, allowing them to flower once again once you've seen them flower for a first time, perhaps the last season or even 2 months ago. So let me talk about this and I will show you what to do and what not to do. And one of those things is something I feel quite embarrassed, but not really embarrassed. I'm not so sure what I was thinking, or perhaps if I had failed in my attempt. And on social media, and certainly on YouTube and Instagram and lots of other platforms, you will see people that talk about growing orchids purely in water. And of course, I had to try this out myself. And so I followed the exact steps that all these people suggest. You know, you remove them from the bark, you clean their roots, you get rid of all the little bits, you cut down any dead roots, which are anyway good standard practices to follow. And then you place them in a glass bowl or a container of sorts where only the little bits of the edges of the roots dangle in the water. And then you have to be sure to replace this water repeatedly. So I did this, and initially I thought, this is really working well, because very soon that plant or two plants that I had at the time in water started flowering. And I thought, well, this is brilliant because it's easy, it looks good, and the plants seem to love it. But very soon after that, I started realizing it's not all it was said to be. And I noticed the roots were browning and then rotting, and I noticed bits and more of the roots were dying back. And I am truthful when I said I did replace the water repeatedly. I only put a portion of the roots in the water, and I put them in the normal same conditions as they are used to getting, and it just didn't seem to be working. And long story short, I actually nearly lost those plants that I had growing in that way. So for me, growing them in water just doesn't work. And I really came close to losing the plant because it almost had no roots left by the end. They all just seemed to rot away, and it was just a mess. And so what I then did was I proceeded to buy fresh bark, and it's kind of a mixture of bark and clay pellets, and I decided I'm just going to repot them in normal growing media and skip the watering thing, and they've since recovered very nicely. So that would be my first thing to say, is perhaps not for everyone. I guess there might be people that have the success of growing them in water. If you do, please let me know in the comments, what is your secret? Enlighten me and all of us that are interested in knowing, because for me, it just didn't work. So I would say, in my opinion, don't grow them in water. The second thing I would talk about is don't put them in direct sunlight. I've tried this before, thinking they're obviously tropical plants. They want as much heat and light as they could possibly get. And for a long time, mine weren't flowering. So I thought, well, let me place them in as much light as I could. And I placed them in direct sunlight, I think on a sunny southern facing windowsill. And all too soon, the leaves were burning. And in the process, because of that light damage, I also did lose a leaf or two. So yes, for me, again, I think don't place them in direct bright sunlight, especially behind glass. They seem to burn and they seem to sulk as a result. And then the third thing I would say in keeping these plants healthy and alive is, and it ties a little bit in with the first point of not growing them in water, I would say don't water them too much. And certainly don't fall for that trick of placing an ice cube on top of the roots. I mean, think of where they come from. They're not getting icy, freezing water at their roots, and then this is melting down to water them ever so slowly. No, water them when needed every other week. You will see based on the color of the roots. If the roots go gray and dull, that is an indication that they want water. And the way I water it, and first I have to talk about the type of pot this is. So it's got drainage holes at the bottom, which is very important because, like I said, the roots don't enjoy sitting in water. Is I place them in a closed container. So I might put this in a big bowl or in a glass container that comes up to here, and I water from the top with rainwater if possible, but tap water will be just fine. And I let it actually sit in that water for half an hour. It's not a bad idea to give a bit of liquid feed while you're doing this, and all of that will just penetrate and go through to the roots. But then I sit it in the water, and once it's been in there for half an hour, I take the whole pot out, I let it drain away completely freely, and I place it back in its original position, either in an ornamental pot or just in its clear pot on a windowsill or wherever you like to enjoy your orchids. So that would be it. It's watering when needed. It's not overwatering, certainly not watering with ice. And more than that, they're pretty much doing what they do. I think sometimes as humans, we try to intervene too much. We try and calculate when do we need to start cutting? When do we need to water? How much light? At the end of the day, the plant will show you what it wants. And so this very brief video was just talking about them and how lovely they are, and really not to overthink them. I'll show you the next plant. Here it is. I've been pretty lucky with them. They seem to be all going into flowering at this moment. The leaves are pretty much healthy and glossy, and that's the kind of thing you want. And then I've also started noticing if I don't cut back these flowering stems, they do on the occasion shoot out from there. So I used to always cut them back when they were dying, and I've since learned by just leaving them, you will very quickly be able to tell if a new flowering stalk will emerge. And if it doesn't, then you can cut it out. But this one is still very green, so I'm assuming within the stems, it still has the capacity to photosynthesize. And so I'm not going to cut this right down. A tip here would be is the moment it turns to brown or to a duller color, then feel free to go ahead and cut it down to the next node. I do just have to add, this orchid is truly the essence of a survivor. It was on a neighbor and friend of mine, and if she ever watches this video, I wonder if she knows who I'm talking about. It was on her garden table out in the garden where it did get direct sun, and it was constantly being exposed to the British summer rain. And even this didn't seem to kind of kill it off, but it wasn't a very happy chappy at the time of saving. And so she was on holiday, and I went out and I reclaimed the plant, and I said to her, right, I'm taking this plant for myself, and I'm going to rehabilitate it and see what happens to it. It's been at least 2 years, if not more, and the plant seems to be absolutely fine. So there you go. Please do let me know in the comments if you have your own experiences with orchids, whether you have any tips for me, or whether you in fact have found that growing them in a certain way is better than another. Please subscribe to this channel if you like content like this, and if you don't want to miss out on any content that I make in terms of plants and gardening and blunders, which ultimately will then result in blooms. I certainly hope so. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.